All right, guys. So now we're going to be doing a demo, and the project that we're going to be demoing is a project called Aave. Okay. So what is Aave? They are a decentralized money market platform. So there are money market platforms in TradFi. I believe they're like called CDs, and Aave is the leading decentralized finance. They're one of the leading decentralized finance lending protocols. And if you look on a website called DeFi Llama, they have the highest TVL in all of crypto right now, and they've been around since 2020, since DeFi summer. Really battle tested. So they basically allow anyone to lend or borrow crypto without needing a bank, credit score, or approval from any company, no matter where you're at in the world. So when users deposit assets, the protocol pays them interest because those deposits become part of the liquidity pool that borrowers can borrow from. Okay, so to keep the system safe, Aave uses what's called over collateralization. This is kind of what they do at the pawn shops. It's a pawn shop model because there's no credit checks and things, but there are private credit protocols that we can get into later. But if you want to borrow, as an example, if you want to borrow $100 of a token, you might need to deposit $150 worth of collateral, and it can either be in the token you're borrowing or one of the other tokens that they accept on the platform. So this ensures that the pool is always protected from defaults or liquidations, so that if you over leverage and you get liquidated, they don't lose money. So the interest rates on Aave are dynamic, and they adjust in real time based off of how much of each asset is being borrowed. So if an asset is heavily borrowed, the rate goes up. If the supply is high and the demand is low, the rate drops. So this keeps everything functioning automatically without humans having to manage it. So overall, it acts like a decentralized, autonomous money market with transparent rules and no middleman, giving users complete control over their funds. So now, supported chains. So Aave doesn't just live on one blockchain, it's multi-chain. So this means you can use Aave on Ethereum, Polygon, Avalanche, Base, and where I'm going to show you all of the chains when we do the demo, depending on the version, right? So each chain comes with its own trade-offs, different fees, different speeds, different interest rates, because they're all supply and demand, and different sets of assets as well. So for example, Ethereum is the most secure, but it's also the most expensive. Polygon, Base, and Avalanche offer cheaper transactions and faster confirmations. And this is the reason why most DeFi users start there. So when people choose a chain for Aave, they're really choosing which balance they want between cost, speed, and available tokens. The protocol itself works the same way on every chain, but the experience and gas costs can vary a lot. So you can pick the chain that fits you best. So before showing you Aave, it's important to understand why protocols like this even exist. And the reason why is because in traditional finance, banks sit at the middle of everything, right? And we talked about how smart contracts is going to eradicate the middlemen. Take a quick sip here. Mouth's getting dry. We talked about how smart contracts is going to eradicate the middleman. So banks decide who can borrow. As a middleman, they set interest rates behind closed doors, right? And they take their fee off the top, and rightfully so, but they just overdo it. And depositors earn almost nothing, even though banks use your money for loans. Like, you guys have seen the interest rates on checking accounts. They're making way more than that, way more. So DeFi completely flips that model. So instead of banks, we have transparent smart contracts. Instead of needing credit checks, you can now borrow as long as you post collateral. And instead of banks profiting off of depositors, you earn the interest directly because you're supplying the liquidity. And this is what makes Aave so powerful. It democratizes access for financial tools that were once only available for large banks or institutions. Now, how are the interest rates calculated? So Aave doesn't have a banker or a team deciding what interest rate should be. Everything is algorithmic, okay? So the protocol adjusts interest rates in real time based on supply and demand. So to give you an example, if basically how you make money on Aave, you can take your Ethereum, you can stake it on the platform, and you get what's called a supply APY. Like let's say the supply APY is 5%. And let's say you want to borrow ETH. The borrow APY might be 8%. So there's a 3% spread that they profit from, and they pay you your 5% from what people are borrowing. Okay. So if a lot of people are borrowing a specific asset, let's call it ETH, the interest rate for borrowers is going to go up, right? This encourages more suppliers to deposit so that they'll earn more yield, and it'll increase the capacity for borrowing because you need people to supply, so because that's where they're borrowing. So if there's plenty of liquidity sitting unused, the rates go down to encourage borrowing, right? So this dynamic system keeps the market balanced, and it's the same way prices change in the real world based on scarcity and demand, except here it's programmed and trustless. So users should understand that their borrowing and lending rates aren't fixed. They adjust automatically as the market changes, and you want to monitor that if you're going to be doing strategies on here. Next one, understand the risk. Nothing is without its risk. So the biggest risk is liquidation, over leveraging, right? So if the value of your collateral drops too much or the value of your borrowed asset increases, your health factor can fall below 1%. And when that happens, the system steps in and sells part of your collateral to repay the loan. And this is how Aave keeps the lenders safe, the people who are supplying. There's also smart contract risk. That means if there's a bug in the code, unexpected outcomes could occur. And these risks are very low because Aave is heavily audited and battle tested, but they're never zero. Okay. The next one is Oracle risk. And an Oracle is basically just, it's a piece of code that bridges data from different places, right? So if you want to put the weather on chain and you want to have like a prediction market, like Polymarket, you can bet like, oh, the weather's going to be 80 tomorrow. In order for it to display correctly on chain, you have to have an Oracle that could get the weather data from off chain, Web 2, and then have it on chain. So an Oracle, you can think of an Oracle as like bridge code. It's just a bridge from on chain and off chain data. Okay. So with oracles, the price feed could malfunction or become manipulated. Although Aave uses decentralized oracles, mainly Chainlink, to minimize this, but it's never impossible. And finally, there's user error, approving the wrong token, over leveraging, error, or not monitoring your health factor. So DeFi does give you full control, but it also requires responsibility. And understanding these risks ahead of time helps you to approach strategies on Aave intelligently and safely. Now, what are the benefits? Because, people don't buy the hammer, they buy the hole in the wall. So what's the hole in the wall here? So Aave isn't just a cool DeFi protocol. It has a practical use case. And one of the most popular is obviously earning passive income from supplying idle assets. So instead of just letting your ETH collect dust or virtual pixie dust in a wallet doing nothing, you can earn yield directly from borrowers, right? Another use case is borrowing without having to sell, right? So if someone holds ETH long-term, but they need stable coins to pay something in real life, they can use their ETH as collateral, and then they can borrow USDC or USDT without triggering a taxable event or losing price exposure, because you don't pay taxes on borrowed funds. And like, let's say I want to buy a house and I have $100,000 in Ethereum and I don't want to sell it because I think Ethereum's going to go up. Well, I can put that Ethereum on Aave, earn a yield, and then I can borrow. Let's say my down payment's $20K. I can borrow $20,000, boom, put that down on my house. And with my job, or I can take the funds and, earn interest on it through yield farming, which we'll get into. And I can use that to pay off my loan because the interest I'll get through yield farming will be higher than my mortgage payment. But what if Ethereum goes up? Well, hey, it's almost like you got your down payment for free, because if the value of your collateral goes up, now you can just pay off your loan. Okay. So people use Aave for stablecoin loans, leveraging positions, and even refinancing, similar to moving debt from one credit card to another, but on chain and automated. Okay. So the key point is that Aave unlocks financial tools that everyday people would never have access to in the traditional financial system. Okay. So now we're going to get into the actual demo, and the mission for you guys after watching the demo is to have in the wallet that you created, practice connecting to the dApp. And if you have some ETH and you want to stake it on there, we're going to get into that too. Okay, so like I said, this is DeFi Llama, and it shows all of the DeFi protocols in order and it just gives you access to a lot of different free data. So the total value in DeFi right now is 120.47 billion. You can see it's just been trending upward, and it's a lot more healthy than just this spike up here. If we look at the protocols that make up that TVL, you can see Aave is first. They have 32.6 billion in TVL, total value locked, and they're on 18 different chains, right? Ethereum Plasma, Arbitrum, Base, Avalanche, Binance Smart Chain, Polygon, Linea, OP, Gnosis, Sonic, Celo, Scroll, ZK Sync, Midas, Sonium, which is Sony's blockchain, Phantom, and Harmony is non-existent. So you can really say 17 chains. So if we go over to Aave, now Aave just launched an app, which is really cool and really interesting given the timing. Like the market's really down right now, and typically projects will launch things like this when they know they're going to have a bunch of eyeballs on it. And this is why them launching this now just gave me, I already had a lot of confidence, but more confidence that we're still in the bull market. Aave's been in talks with regulators for years, been very regulatorily compliant, if I said that correctly. So now we're getting to a place where you can do DeFi on the phone because they made an app, but we're just going to cover the dApp. Okay. You can sign up for early access. It hasn't launched yet, but yeah. So if you scroll down here, they have lots of partnerships. They work with a lot of projects. You know, why choose Aave? We kind of went through all of this in the slides, right? They have extensive audits that you guys can go and read here. They've been around for 5 years. They have their own stablecoin as well, right? And now let's launch the app. Normally it'll say launch dApp, but they just, you know, launch their app. So they're marketing that. So I'm going to connect my wallet here. All right. So right now we are on ETH mainnet on V3, and we already went through all the chains that you can access on there. So basically you click dashboard and it'll give you your wallet balance that you have on that specific chain. And it'll give you access to what you have, what you can borrow, right? So if I want to borrow ETH, the interest rate is 1.9. Wrap stake ETH, I believe this is what this is, 0.16. I want to borrow stable coins. And this is going to be higher right now because more people are borrowing stable coins because, you know, the markets are down and people want to borrow stable coins to speculate with, right? So this is all the assets that you can borrow on ETH. And like I said, let me opt out of this. Each chain has their own assets and their own different interest rates. Okay. So now if we go ahead and click markets, I can go here and it gives you the total amount supply on this specific chain, the supply, APY, which is annual percentage yield, and the total amount borrowed, and then the borrow APY. And remember, these are all variable rate yields, meaning they change with supply and demand. Okay. They never really get too high. Like the highest I've seen is like 12% for something, which you can get that. You can get that in a stablecoin pool, yield farming, which we'll get into probably here in a few weeks. So I am going to, and then governance. If you hold like the Aave token, you can like vote on different things. I've never been a voter, right? But if you're into that kind of thing, and you can also deposit GHO, which is their stablecoin, and basically earn a yield in it. But I would prefer to hold USDC. That's just me. And let's actually go through a transaction here. So I'm going to hit Ethereum. Amount to supply. Oh, this is wrapped Ethereum. So another thing here, wrapped Ethereum and regular Ethereum, the difference between it is that in order for Ethereum to be able to interact with smart contracts, aka do stuff in DeFi, it has to be wrapped because the wrap versions allows it to do that. So you can kind of think of it as like Ethereum is a human being and DeFi is space, and the wrapper, which is wrapped ETH, is like its astronaut suit, so it can breathe in space. Just to give you guys a simple analogy. And sometimes a lot of dApps, they've kind of abstracted that away. So you think you're dealing with native ETH, but it'll just wrap it for you on the back end. It always has to be wrapped. So if I want to go ahead and hit supply here, I'm going to do just 0.1 ETH and I'm going to hit supply. And then collateralization, you want to make sure this is enabled, especially if you want to borrow against it, which we're also going to walk through as well. So when I supply this Ethereum, I'm going to be getting 1.13% in yield per year right now, based on supply and demand. Remember, these will always change. So I'm gonna go through. I'm not sure if you guys can see the transaction request, but it's saying what I'm sending. It's saying what I'm going to receive. I'm receiving Aave wrapped ETH, and this is like my receipt so that I can get my actual ETH back. Kind of like when we used to go to the bank back in the day, you give them your gold, they gave you $1. If you look on $1, it says this is an IOU, a promissory note, which is basically a receipt to get your gold back when you give us back this dollar. But Nixon took us off, and that's a whole nother story. But this is kind of like $1, your receipt. So you want to make sure that you don't send this to another wallet, because your funds will just be stuck on here and you won't be able to get it back. It tells me the network I'm on. It's telling me the request is from app.aave.com. So I know this is the right website. It tells me what I'm interacting with, and it gives me the speed. So if I want to have my transaction move up quicker, I can add what's called a tip. So, remember when Charisma went over the mempool in last class, all the transactions go to that mempool, and the miners or validators, I should call it, because ETH moves to proof of stake. The validators select which one that's going to pay them the most. So by paying them a tip, you basically just like paying a cut in line. It's like having the clear pass at the airport, so you don't have to wait. So I'm going to go ahead and confirm this, and I'm going to close the extension. And we should be good to go here pretty soon. Wait for this to supply. All right. So I can add it to my wallet if I want to, so that way I don't forget it's there or something like that. Remember, on ETH or on MetaMask, because I'm using MetaMask, you have to add it to the wallet. So I'll add it to the wallet. Why not? Add token, and okay, close. So okay, boom. So now it's showing my dashboard. It's showing my rewards, which I don't have any right now. But now let's say I want to borrow, right? And guys, this is like a cool way to use leverage, because I can loop this multiple times. So versus having to, go on an exchange and, do a 2-3x leverage position, I can use my ETH as collateral. I can borrow USDC. I can swap that USDC for ETH again, and I can supply it again. It increases my asset to borrow capacity, and I can just loop that a couple times. So now it gives me the amount I can borrow. But you may not want to do the full amount, because remember, you want to keep your loan score low. So if Ethereum drops, and right now Ethereum is 3,100, so it could drop to 2,800 again. We saw it again. I don't want to get liquidated, so I'm just going to borrow $100, and it tells you what your health factor would be. So if I do the max, that's going to help my health factor really low. And you kind of don't want to have it in the red. And you can always, if you're like, if ETH, starts to drop, you can always add like USDC as collateral, because USDC isn't going to drop. So it'll make you less likely to get liquidated. You're using Ethereum as collateral here, but Ethereum can go up and down. So if I want to like get into a long position, I would actually stake Ethereum, supply Ethereum or supply USDC instead of ETH. And then I would borrow Ethereum, sell it, stake more USDC, and then use the amount that I borrowed to buy more. So that way, when the price of ETH goes up, I can take the ETH that I bought with my leverage, sell it, and pay off my USDC debt. If I was trying to short ETH, then I would do the opposite. Hopefully that makes sense. So instead of doing 265, I'm going to do 100. So now I have my health factor at 2.7, which is pretty healthy. And again, I can always take some money that I have in my wallet to add to it if things start to go down. I'm going to confirm. I'm going to close the extension, and we should be good here. In 3, 2, 1. Oh, nice. Never works out that way. All right, so I'm going to close that. So now I have a supply position, and I also have a borrow position you see up here. Okay, so now if I want to repay my loan, all I do is go to repay. I can do max, or I can do 99.98, and then I can repay it, and we're going to confirm that. We're going to close that. And remember, guys, whatever you borrow, you have to pay back what the quantity is, regardless of price. And this is how you like conceptualize your liquidation. So if you go on to Aave and you borrow, let's say 5 Ethereum, okay, and you want to short it and USDC as your collateral, you want USDC as your collateral because if ETH drops, your collateral is USDC, so your health factor is still going to be high. But as ETH is dropping, now you can take the USDC, and remember, you borrow 5 ETH, so that means you have to pay back 5 ETH regardless of price. So if you're shorting it and now ETH goes up 500% or whatever, and now when you borrowed it, Ethereum was $3,000, so you basically borrow $15,000. If it goes up 500%, now you're in risky territory, and this is why shorting is risky. But if Ethereum goes down and your short comes into play, and let's say ETH goes to 1,000, you can take your USDC, you can buy 5 ETH, and now you pay off your loan. But instead of having to pay, 15,000, you only pay 5,000, and you get to keep that $10,000 as profits. So that's how you use Aave in a nutshell. And now I am going to come back to our screen here and stop sharing, and we're going to open up the Q&A section.
Right. Recording in progress.
All right, guys, so we're going to open it up for Q&A. But if everyone wants to unmute their mics, I'm going to put requests in here to go ahead and unmute. We're going to spend this time just getting through questions that anyone has. You're welcome to come on screen, whatever you like, but at least unmute those mics and let's get those questions rolling. Don't be shy.
Not everyone at once.
Can you repeat this last part about the borrowing ETH versus borrowing USDC, and then to not borrow, supply, and then borrow the other? Just repeat that a little bit again because you were too fast. Thank you so much.
No problem. Sorry about that. So basically, when you supply, yes, you can think of it as staking, right? You stake and let's say ETH. If you just want to get a yield and you're not doing anything and you're not worried about borrowing anything, then you would just take your Ethereum or your USDC or your Bitcoin or your Chainlink or whatever asset they offer on Aave, and you stake it on there, and now you're getting paid whatever the interest rate is. So that's that. Now, if you want to borrow, now when you borrow funds, you're essentially taking on leverage. And when you take on leverage, you're either in a leverage long, meaning you're betting on prices going up, or you're in a leverage short, which means you're betting on prices going down. Okay. So now let's say you want to enter into a Ethereum leverage long. Okay. So if you want to enter into a Ethereum leverage long, you want to supply Ethereum as collateral, right? And the reason why you want to use Ethereum as collateral, meaning you initially supply Ethereum first, is because if you're betting on it going up, and it might be a good idea, just in case you're wrong and the market goes against you, supply some USDC as well, so that if you're in your leverage long and Ethereum actually drops, you don't get liquidated because you also have some USDC as collateral that isn't going to go down with ETH. So your collateral won't drop as much. Does that part make sense so far?
So far, so good.
Okay, perfect. So now you stake your Ethereum on there and you want to enter into an Ethereum leverage long. So what you're going to do is you're going to borrow USDC. After you borrow the USDC, you can go on one of the decentralized exchanges that we use, right? Uniswap, Aerodrome, or whatever. And you're going to swap that USDC for more Ethereum. Then you're going to take that Ethereum and go and supply it again, right? Now, after you supply it again, you go borrow more USDC. You take that USDC, you swap it for ETH again, and then you go stake it as collateral again. And you can do that as many times as you feel comfortable. Every time you loop it, it adds another X. So if you loop it twice, you're in a 2X leverage, 3 times, 3X leverage, so on and so forth. So now how that helps is that, okay, boom. Once Ethereum goes up in value, let's say you have 5 Ethereum as collateral because you leverage 3 times. Well, when you leverage, let's say ETH was 3K, and now let's say ETH goes to 10K. So now your collateral is very, very high. And remember, you borrowed USDC. So you have to pay back USDC. And let's say you borrowed $20,000 of USDC. Well, since the value of your Ethereum went up so much, now you can sell $20,000 worth of Ethereum to USDC, go back and pay off your USDC loan, and now you get to keep the difference. And you use leverage to accumulate more ETH versus just the ETH that you initially had. Does that make sense so far?
Yes. So you are using ETH in this case to borrow stable coins, hoping, thinking that ETH will go up. But if you do it opposite, so if you borrow a stable coin, then if you're supplying stable coin, you're borrowing ETH, then you're thinking that ETH will go down.
Yes, and what you would do is you would supply stable coins, you borrow ETH, and then you take that ETH and you sell it to stable coins. And the reason why you want to sell it is because if you're shorting it, you don't want to hold it. Like when you're shorting something, you're basically borrowing money and then you sell the asset so that you're hoping that it's going to drop so that you can buy it back cheaper. So and just like if you're long in something, you want to have ETH and stable coins as collateral, you want to do that same thing on the downside. So you want to have ETH as collateral as well, so that if it goes up, because if you're shorting and it goes up, that's not good. But if you have ETH as collateral as well and ETH goes up, the value of your collateral is still going to help you because it's going to rise. Okay. Because if you borrow 5 ETH and now ETH goes up, now you're getting closer to your liquidation score because the value of your loan to value ratio is getting skewed because what you borrowed is now going up versus your collateral. So you want to have ETH as collateral as well. Okay. So now you have your stable coins as your supply along with some ETH, but you have your stable coins, you borrow Ethereum, you sell it to USDC, and you go and restake that USDC as supply. You borrow more ETH, you sell it to USDC again, restake it, and you do that however many times you feel comfortable, just like on the long. And then, like, let's say, everything goes blue sky scenario, Ethereum drops from 3,000 down to 500. So, and then you borrowed 5 ETH. So instead of having to pay back 5 ETH at $3,000, which is 15,000, now let's say ETH is $1,000, you only have to pay back $5,000. So you just made $10,000. Yeah, or sometimes you can also take it and go yield farming with it instead of just holding it and get even more. So there's multiple things you can do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it made a lot of sense. Thank you.
Great question. Did anyone else have any questions? Let me look in chat, see. Barrett, no questions. Max, Cicely, Arnie, I haven't seen you on here. Welcome. Let us know if you guys have any questions. We are here to help, here to serve. Going once. Oh.
None. I was just going to say, all right, going once, going twice. We were thinking the same thing. But guys, next week, what we're going to do is we're going to actually pre-populate and get some questions from the community in advance, so that we can go ahead and start off these Q&A sessions, and it might help you guys to, warm up to getting on screen. But come with your questions answered, because I can tell you, he or she that asks the most questions is he or she that is going to win the most when it comes to learning about Web3 and just really learning how to protect and multiply your assets along the journey. Vince, is there anything you want to add before we go ahead and chime off and log off here today?
No, I was just saying, oh, you got to mute. I I would say just go and hit those missions, go and connect to Aave. Start off small, stake, $50 in Ethereum, $50 in USDC. You don't have to get into borrowing if you don't want, if it's too complex. But, why just let it sit idly in your wallet? And again, don't do all of it, because remember, there are risks, but Aave is probably the safest platform in all of DeFi, and people have been trying to hack it for years and no one's been able to. So yeah, just give it a whirl, and hopefully we'll see you in the next class, and thanks for coming.
Yeah, and guys, I'm going to go ahead and close it out with this. There is some really cool things coming along. I know many of you have come here and got access to this for free, but there's a whole lot more of you that actually got the highly discounted access. I want you guys to be aware that those of you that did pay for the discounted access, you didn't pay the full $798. It was like maybe $150, $140. I forget what the price is. You're going to have lifetime access to attend all of the future cohorts, because these are going to actually continuously grow, and the information will be changing. We'll also have different sponsors that are coming on to present their information. They may be giving away free stuff as well. And there's some more cool giveaways that are being given away to everyone that did pay. So for those of you that are here for free and you want to do the upgrade, you're more than welcome to do the upgrade. Just make sure to put it in the chat. We will make sure that you guys get a link, because it's going to give you a link access to forever going forward. And if you're brand new to the community, that's actually going to give you a link to actually unlock office hours as well, because there is a subscription that you can subscribe to so that you can have ongoing support. So along your journey, as you're going forward, you're going to be able to come to office hours, and like let's say you wanted to get those questions answered all over again that Joanna just asked us. You want to get help with the Aave, you want to get help with anything that you're getting into along the journey, and the chat isn't quite sufficient. You're going to be able to unlock that, and that basic membership also. Like, we're going to ETH Denver. We're going to be doing an event out there. Everyone that attends ETH Denver, they have a subscription to Knowit Owlz. They're going to be getting into the events that we're going to be doing around the world for free. So there's a lot of things that are unraveling here. So if you want to do those upgrades, absolutely take care of that. If you've already done the upgrade, welcome, and we're just going to keep unraveling all of the free things that are going to come out to you along the way. So with that said, we are over and out. So Vince, do you want to do your little head thing?
Take care and trade safe.